We're very pleased to introduce Roon 1.8. This release, maybe more than any other that we've ever done, represents an evolution that's being guided by the community that uses Roon every day. We're a group of musicians and producers, engineers, and audiophiles who bring not only a shared passion for music, but also our expertise. And increasingly, that's defining what Roon is.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Qobuz Live on Thursday. It's been like 8 weeks or 7 or 8 weeks since we've done the show, and I have certainly missed it and really am very, very glad to be back in the saddle and be back in front of everyone. I had my little bout with COVID. Thank goodness it was one of the light cases, and it's all over now. And so, hey, it's time to get back to work and have a good time. Today, we've got a really special show. I know I always say that, but they pretty much usually are. But today, we've got a really special guest with us from Roon Labs. He's the product manager, Mike Fass. Really good friend and just a fascinating guy. Most of the people at Roon are. It's a team of people like I've actually never seen in one single company. Extremely intelligent people, as you could probably tell if you use Roon. But we'll be bringing Michael on in just a second. Before we do that, I'll tell you a little bit about Roon. We've changed this to a little bit about Qobuz. We've changed this up just a little bit. Neitha, you can go ahead and bring this up. We've now got over 70 million tracks. If you've been with us a while, you'll know that we started off with about 40. About 6-8 months ago, we were up to 60, and now we're over 70 million tracks, which is really cool because it's a lot less people are calling me up going, hey, do you have this or do you have this? Everything that we do is all bit perfect, and we've got files up to 192 kilobits, 24/192, which is just, it's about as good as you can get with high resolution audio. None of our files are ever altered in any way. We put up what the record companies give us, and there's never any tricks. There's no upsampling or anything like that. What you get is what we get. Another really cool thing about Qobuz and listening to the highest resolutions is no special technology or proprietary DACs are required to listen to bit perfect high resolution audio and listen to the whole thing. It's a FLAC format, and almost any DAC in the world will resolve up to 24/192. We're also the only company that is the only major streaming company that is authorized to use the Japanese Audio Society high-res badge, which is really cool, and we get to show that on everything that we do from 24-bit and above. And they're well over 3 million or so cuts now in high resolution. Neither. Yeah, we've got a download store too. This is a really cool place that you can buy your music and support your favorite artists. When you go into the store, it looks something like this. And anybody can get in there. All you do is just go to Qobuz.com and hit the download store, and you're there. You don't have to be a member of Qobuz. And you get these just really great prices on high resolution audio. This allows the artists and rights holders to be paid at a standard rate. Neither. So let's say you pick out Neil Young. We just got the whole Neil Young catalog, or a good bit of it, in 24/192, and now all of that stuff is for sale, and it's on just really good deals. So say you pick out Neil Young, Neither. Okay, and then you go, okay, yeah, I want Harvest. How much is that going to cost me? All right, look, if you're just a normal person off the street, it's going to cost you about $20. Or if you're a member of just a standard Qobuz plan, it's going to cost you around $20, which is incredible. You get this great album for that's 24/192 for very little money. However, if you're a Sublime member, and we'll talk about that in just a second, you can get it for like almost half of that. It's like $10.99, which is I think probably by far the lowest price that you'll ever see on the internet. We've also got, these are just things that make Qobuz a little different from the other services, but we have a really, really high regard for editorial and what you would, what we think that you would like to know about artists. So we're always doing these special articles on different artists, and they're just all over the site. Here's some more. You'll be able to click on any one of these artists, see huge stories about them that I find super, super interesting. And at the bottom of those articles, you'll be able to switch to their recordings or people that are like them. The other really cool thing, and Roone has got a new playlist on here too, is we really support the industry like no other streaming services. So we've got all of these. Oh, there's a ton of them up there. I don't know how many. Exactly how many, but there's a whole lot of different playlists up from different manufacturers and maybe some of your favorite stores. Some of the press has got some up there. As you can see, we've got 3 from Roone here: Winter Warmers, Rhythm, and Relax. The Roone, you can take it down now, Neetha. The Roone files are always a lot of fun. Next one. Oh, go one more back. Sorry. We're also one of 2 companies that are proud to work really well with Roone. Roone, as you'll find out today, is a graphic user interface and music management system like no other. And we are so proud to be partners with Roone. I use it every single day. I think anyone that really gets into Roone and starts understanding how it works and why it works will get into it and be doing the same thing I'm doing as well. My favorite saying about Roone is, if you're using Roone and Qobuz together and you can get to bed before 3:30 in the morning, you are doing it wrong. It's a lot of fun. So we've got a few different plans starting at about $12.50 a month. If you can believe that, you can get 192 files, and the very lowest thing that you'll ever see from Qobuz is going to be 1644. We've totally given up MP3 because we think it's irrelevant. If you want MP3, there's a ton of places you can get it. There's one place you can't get it, and that's Qobuz. So these are a few of the plans. And then we've also got a family plan. If you've got kids that you'd like to turn on to high resolution audio, you could do that for as low as about $23 to $23 a month, and that'll get you up to 6 family members. So I wanted to change that up a little bit because these are all the things that make Qobuz different. These are the things that we offer that no one else does. So welcome back. I am super happy to be back, and I am incredibly happy to welcome my friend Mike Fass. How are you doing, buddy?
I am doing excellent. I'm excited to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
It's so good to see you. It's like, I think probably for the last at least half dozen times, maybe a few more times of that. I've got a ritual. Anytime I've got a flight to New York, one of my first emails after I find out what all we need to do at Qobuz is Mike, and I'm going, okay, Mike, and it's got to be last minute. We can never plan these things over. Like, how long did you say, Mike? How long in advance could we possibly plan this for?
You got to be measuring it in hours, right? We can't plan this in days or weeks. It's like David is landing. I like try to get Danny to come in from Brooklyn, and then we go out and we find some live music and some dinner and maybe some beverages, and it's always a good time. I'm ready to get back to that one of these days, David. I'm sure
it's always so much fun. But the thing that really gets me is it's so entertaining. I sit like at you guys' feet and just ask questions. It's like, these people that know all about music management, what you're doing, and I've always found it fascinating. Plus, everybody that we usually meet with it's scattered with a ton of information with just about as many total belly laughs as we can possibly get in, whether it be, at Cats or the Vietnamese deli, or if we're just, sitting around and trying to dip into your brains.
Yeah, there's a good photo out there somewhere of me, you, and Danny at Katz's late at night at the I'll have what she's having table with a big plate of pastrami. So I'm sure we'll be back there.
Well, that's one of my favorite. That's how you have friends in New York, right? They'll actually take you to tourist traps, and they won't complain about it. These guys never complain about it.
No, I don't complain about that one for sure. Yeah, that one's on the list. That one's acceptable.
Well, gosh, man, you guys have been you've been a bit busy at Roone lately, haven't you?
It's been a busy couple of weeks for us. It's been a huge kind of weight off of our shoulders. We were working on this release for a year plus. A lot of changes, a million details that had to be kind of thought through, and we're really excited to finally have it out there. And the reception has been amazing. I mean, it's been overwhelming for all of us just to keep up with the feedback, and so many emails and messages from customers and friends and everybody, and just like it's been really the reception has been fantastic. We've been really, really happy.
You guys have been around a while, but this 1.8 release that you've had, it feels like Roone has finally arrived. If you know what I mean. It's like there's always been a bit of undercurrent. There's always been this sort of, if you're in the cool kids club, you know about Roone, but a lot of other people may not know about Roone. So before we get into what the improvements are and what you guys have been up to and how you haven't stuck a pencil in your neck over the last 6 months, so that I'm pretty impressed with that whole thing. Can you give everyone just sort of an overview of what Roone is, what its purpose is, and while we're at it, we'll probably dispel a couple of myths or misinterpretations of it.
Sure. Yeah. There's a lot of different ways to describe Roone, and I have definitely at times spoken about this for too long. So I'll try to give the simple version here, which is at a basic level, Roone allows you to have a music library and to explore the music that you own and to discover more music. With really, I think we're gonna show this a little bit later, David, but it's designed to kind of give you an immersive, contextual browsing experience for the music that you love and the artists and composers and producers, and to really take music and put it in context, right? I mean, at Roone, we all listen to playlists and we all use Roone Radio, which is, you're just kind of hearing songs and it's great for certain kinds of experiences, but when you want to really browse and you love an artist or you love an album or there's a song that you just love and you want to know how many different people have performed it, Roone is designed to kind of give you that context and allow you to browse. And so it's a great place for you to keep your music if you're someone who that's really important to. If you love music, you put your library into Roone, and we hear every day from people who are like, it's just kind of eye-opening what this has done to my music. So that's kind of the first part, is what it lets you browse, browsing credits and browsing composers and compositions and albums and artists. The other piece of it is the way that Roone works with audio gear around your home, right? So a way that I describe this for people often who are completely uninitiated with what we do is if you have Sonos, maybe you put Sonos in 4 rooms of your home, and that's pretty cool. You can play music all around the house. Roone allows you to really put whatever gear you want in different rooms. You could have an Apple TV in the bedroom. You could have any manner of high-end audio gear in the living room or in a listening room. You can play back to Sonos or AirPlay devices. So Roone kind of gives you this whole home experience that allows you to kind of mix and match and pick the gear that you want. So it really gives you this whole home experience with high res audio, different kinds of devices and protocols and all that. The last thing I would just say is that for people who are really concerned about audio quality, This is something, our team goes back to 2005, 2006, even a little bit earlier, some of the really early iterations of this stuff. And so, we were a hardware manufacturer ourselves. We were part of Meridian Audio for a number of years. And so what we've actually done since we launched Roon in 2015 is that we've actually worked with over 100 different audio manufacturers. And so those manufacturers have taken code that we've written, and they've kind of integrated our Roon Ready protocol into their devices. And it's not just kind of like they give it a shot, it's best effort, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. Any device that is Roon Ready, that is certified by our team, the company has sent us the hardware. We've worked with their developers. We've integrated the software, and it's gone through a pretty rigorous certification process in-house with our team, right? And so not only have we ensured that you can hit play on the device, you can use Roon to see exactly what quality the audio is streaming around the house to different devices. But if you have different devices with different capabilities, you just hit play and Roon is going to kind of handle that for you, right? And so it really gives you this seamless experience where, when we were working with Meridian, obviously, if you're lucky enough to put Meridian in every room of the house, you hit play and everything works. But not everybody can afford that kind of setup, right? And so what we've tried to do with Roon is make it so that when you are using Roon in your home and you are using devices that are Roon ready, you can hit play. You're going to get the highest possible quality output, and you can play it all over the house. And the point up until you hit play, that's the kind of for me at least, that's the real magic is kind of finding something to listen to. And that's also what we really focused on in 1.8.
So I can really speak to this from a personal view, in that I've got servers or streamers or servers literally all over my house. I think I've got like maybe 7 or 8 systems set up around that all had different GUIs, graphic user interfaces. They all work, right? But there's like zero experience there. So one of my favorite things that happened to me with Roon is last summer. I took out, it's this little desk radio kind of thing that sounds pretty good. It was something Peachtree Audio made called Deep Blue, and it had AirPlay and it was Wi-Fi. So I just took it out to the deck. We had just built a brand new deck out there, right? It was already seeing my Sonos and my Auralic. It was already seeing the DCS. It was seeing, basically everything that I've got, all of the different systems around the house. It was already seeing this thing. So I'm out there with this little unit that's got basically a link play user interface, which if you know anything about that, it's the most basic, oh my God, do I have to actually turn it on again kind of a program out there. And I just happened to be on Roon on my core, and I look up and I see Deep Blue, and it says that beautiful blue button that says enable. And so I'm sure, why not enable this thing? I go downstairs, I whip out my iPad, and bam, there's the Deep Blue. So now I'm looking at this thing going, oh my gosh, I've got a real user interface. It's so much fun. Plus it's seeing all my other stuff. But that's the one really cool thing is that I don't, depending on what piece of gear I choose, I don't want to have to switch graphic user interfaces with everything that I choose, and Roon allows me to do that. So downstairs, one of my buddies from, the Roon user group?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course.
They're just an absolute great bunch of guys. I mean, I am amazed when I go on this group. It's for one of the guys is a friend of mine named Neil Small. But I'm amazed when I go on this group and these guys are asking these incredibly tough questions, and man, they just hop on it. It's like you guys are paying them money to do this, but they do it all for free. So Neil, I'm getting into this whole thing, and I'm going, I've never done a pie, but I'm kind of interested but I don't have time to do it. I just, I'm always busy. So Neil's going, hey, let me make you a pie and send it to you. And so I sent him some money, sends me this pie, and I've had it downstairs on my icon system ever since. This whole thing is just amazing. No matter what system I'm using, just like you say, it helps me not only use the similar or the same user interface, but it also makes it sound really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of what Qobuz has done in their UI. I think, I mean, we can talk about that more later, but I mean, it's you guys do a lot of contextual stuff too. You were showing the panoramas before. I mean, all that stuff is amazing. But you're right. There are a lot of apps out there that are not they're not very immersive, and in a lot of cases, you end up with these big kind of text lists of artists and albums and folders, and
the user interface just isn't fun to work with, right?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it really is about, and I think this is really true for almost all Roon users. If you were really serious about this stuff, if you really care about music, you want to have the experience of browsing a collection. And for me, I mean, David, you and I have talked about my vinyl collection a lot over the years and stuff, and the experience of
but I'd like everybody to know how much of a music lover you really are, because really this isn't that unusual at Roon. But I mean, when Mike started telling me about his collection, it was unreal. And Mike just moved to a new place, which is a really cool new house for the family. But he had been living in New York for a long time. But tell how many albums you have right now, and then where are they, Mike?
It's probably like 10 or 12,000 records, something like that total. That's a rough count because they're kind of spread around. The apartment in New York is extremely small, but somehow there's probably 4,000-5,000 there, and there's a couple thousand in the basement below me right now, and then there's probably another 6 in my mom and dad's basement as well, which I promised them I'm going to get out of there one of these days. But they're heavy. It's a lot of vinyl, but To me, we really have tried to create some of that experience of, you have I always remembered this as I was growing my collection, that the collection was sorted chronologically by this is I'm using Roon language right now, but it's by date added. And I could remember that section on the wall was all of the records I bought 3 summers ago. And for whatever reason, my brain could remember which albums fit into which time period, and so that's still actually how the way that I use Roon the most often is just when did I add that album, when did I hear that, where the album that David told me about, where I know exactly kind of where it is. And so that's something that it's really, really hard to get when you're looking at a screen full of text, right? When it feels like a spreadsheet or a folder tree or something like that, it doesn't have, to me, the tactile experience of music that's yours, right? And that to me that's such a kind of a critical piece of what we've done in Roon over the years, but also kind of what we were trying to do with 1.8, which is
the thing about that is, Mike, I was actually going somewhere with that, and where I was going was you remember that buddy that and some people don't because they weren't around then, but it was you remember that buddy you had at the record shop that would just make your little hair stand up because, he knew you, he knew what you wanted to listen to, that you had a relationship together, right? So to me, that is about as close as you can get with a something that understands ones and zeros, understands me as well. And that's really a big part of what Roon brings to the table for me. But it's really neat that all of you guys have got huge amounts of experience acquiring music and figuring out how am I going to store this, and where am I going to put it, how am I going to find it next, and what should I listen to next. All of those experiences come through in Roon, and for one, I just want to say thank you, because good Lord, you were being really, really generous a second ago. And I wanted to call you on this because you said there aren't very many places or GUIs that you could go to and see what we give you. I'm going, okay, is there one? You said there's not very many. Is there one? I can't think of one.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we have been doing this for a very long time, and I can tell you that from the minute I got involved with Eno and Danny, I mean, I saw what they had done on the original Sulu system. You know, I joined up with those guys maybe 6 months before Sulu's originally launched, and I saw what was the Control One, and it felt like the shelf of records that I had at home. Big album art, and it was like, you're scanning the track list and you're scanning the credits, and it feels like, wow, that's where I want my music to be. And
that was a really cool system. I mean, it was the first time that anybody, I think, had ever seen a screen that you touch and the album blows up, and then you go swipe it and you see information on the album. It was really, really cool. I mean, I think everybody wanted that when they saw it. However, this wasn't for the meek of bank account, right? So if you wanted to get one of the early on Sulu systems, which ended up turning into Roon, how much could you expect to pay for something like that?
I think the base price of those systems was, I don't think that you could get it for under 10K. I think it might have been like $12,000 to $15,000 for those systems, depending on how much storage you wanted. And if you unless you had like audio distribution in your house, right? If you have an AV closet with all of the rooms wired up, then you could have one device feeding everything. But if you wanted to put control points in different rooms, right? I mean, the numbers would go up rapidly. So it was not, I joined up at, I guess I must have been 25 or 26. It was not in the price point of myself or many people that I knew at that time. But it just blew my mind. And my friends would come over and they would just be transfixed with this screen that I had fed all of my CDs into. And we're browsing this collection, and it really felt different than anything else out at that time. And we actually released that, the iPhone wasn't even out yet. And so we were shipping this touchscreen music controller. And I mean, it was a little bit crazy. I mean, it was, me and Eno had to like go to Taiwan and figure out how to fix the broken hinges on stuff and whatever. But, the experience was amazing of using the product. And that's kind of flowed through what we did at Meridian and what we've done with Roon, right? We've been thinking about how to make music collection feel this way for 15 years now, right? So it's pretty exciting to have people who have responded to that, right? I mean, the way that people have responded to 1.8 has been incredibly gratifying for us. That it's kind of the culmination of what we've been thinking about for all these years.
And so you went to work with those guys at age 25, and so you've really been there since the very beginning, Mike. I mean, you've seen all of the changes and all of the improvements. You've been there through the heartache when things didn't work and you were like, about to choke yourself. But now we're coming up with 1.8, which that's really the 28 minutes into this thing. That's really what we're here to talk about. But I did want to give some kind of little background on what we were doing. I know Sue Jan is going to be coming on. I didn't want to interrupt the next part of the presentation, but I don't think Sue Jan's here yet. So we'll go ahead and go for a little while and then see when she comes in. Sue Jan's going to be doing our music corner this week, telling us a little bit about what she's got going on, what we've got coming. And I don't know if you've noticed or not, but we have got a whole lot of new cool 24/192 material that just hit. So Neetha, what we'll probably do is go ahead and pull up the files that Mike brought with him, and let's go ahead and start on talking about what you guys have done with 1.8 and some of the improvements that you've made.
Sure. So I mean, one of the things that we've been thinking about a lot over the last couple of years, David, and it's actually interesting that what you were saying about, a record store clerk who really knows what you like, and that kind of like, there's almost nothing better than when a friend comes to you and was like, I heard this album and it made me think of you. I know you're going to love this, right? That's like almost like the best possible recommendation that you can get. And so over the last few years as an organization, we've made a huge investment in machine learning and recommendation, what we call valence, right? And so this is something that kind of looks at what you've been listening to, what's in your library. It uses all this listening data about Roon users in general. And we started working on this a few years ago. And what we found was that there's just incredible insights out there in the listening history of the Roon user base. Anyone who has come to Roon and signed up and subscribed and spent time putting their collection into Roon and listening to Roon, they're obsessives about this stuff, like we are, right? And like you are, David, right? So they are. There's just incredible insight to be gleaned there, and so that was kind of the basis of Roon Radio originally, and we've released some other recommendation features over the last few years. We had a new release for you feature that looks at what you've been listening to and shows you the latest releases. And we did some other recommendation features as well. But in 1.8, we really wanted to kind of take that to the next level and really use that to put your music and the music in the world kind of in context, and also to kind of solve this problem that came out of sort of the success of Roon Radio. So you're using Roon Radio, it's playing great, it's playing great songs for you. It's helping you find new artists, and maybe you've been listening to the first 3 artists, but the 4th one that comes up is someone that's totally new to you. You land on this artist page, and what I'm showing here is actually Roon 1.7. So this is just an example that I've been kind of using to illustrate some of what we have been doing with in 1.8. So just if you can imagine for a second, David, I'm sure this is not the case for you, but if you can imagine that Ella Fitzgerald comes up on Roon Radio, and this is someone that's new to you. You hear some of these songs, you're not that familiar with her work, you don't have a lot of her music in your library, and so you go to her page and you want to kind of figure out, where do you start with Ella Fitzgerald? And so as you browse down the page, you can see here there aren't any Ella Fitzgerald albums in this library, and this is something that Roon has always done since the beginning. You can see that we are finding in the library that I'm showing here that Ella Fitzgerald appears on this Count Basie album. She appears on this Benny Goodman album, and there's a couple other like various artist compilations that she appears on. So she appears in my library, and because Roon has this deep kind of credit data, we're able to pull these out and show you that Ella Fitzgerald exists in your library, even though you don't own any of her albums and you haven't added any of them to your library yet. But if you actually want to explore Ella Fitzgerald, right, as you browse down the page in 1.7, you can see here that there are like some people that she has collaborated with, Oscar Peterson and Benny Goodman. There are some singles from Ella Fitzgerald up there at the top, right? But as you kind of browse deeper here, this is kind of where you land for Ella Fitzgerald, right? And this is all the main albums for Ella Fitzgerald. And if you can see those little dots along the bottom, I mean, there's hundreds of albums, and depending on which territory you're in or which streaming service you're using, there could be thousands of Ella Fitzgerald albums or whichever artist you're looking at. And so this doesn't give you a way to kind of begin understanding who you're looking at, right? It's just sort of like, here's all the Ella Fitzgerald. And so this was really where we felt like Roon Radio is helping you discover new artists, new albums, new composers, and new performances, but you're not actually like able to land on someone and orient yourself. You're not able to actually see what you're looking at, right? And so in Roon 1.8, we have the same biographical information here at the top. We have genres, and we have where she was born and where she died, and a biography. But we're also telling you right at the top of the screen, when Roon users are listening to Ella Fitzgerald, these are the tracks that they're kind of gravitating towards. And so that's like, I mean, this is something that
that's your record store guy.
Yeah, that's right. And this is we've heard from some people, someone on our community site didn't like our Beatles list. So I've been working with our machine learning team all week, and we've been iterating on this, and we're, but the point is that for classical and jazz and a lot of groups, being able to kind of tap into what Roon users are listening to is just an incredible amount of power at your fingertips when you're using the app. So as I go down the page here, you can see I have the same Count Basie and Benny Goodman albums, but I don't actually have any Ella in my library. But I don't have the same problem that I had in 1.7, right? I can land here and immediately out of the gate, I'm being told these are the Ella Fitzgerald albums that Roon users are gravitating towards, right? So
I love this feature. Right, that is so cool.
So you see I have Ella and Louie here. I have the Cole Porter songbook. I have Ella with Duke Ellington. And so immediately I'm getting a sense of kind of where do I want to start with Ella Fitzgerald? And for every artist in your library, this is going to be kind of anything that you've already got is going to be removed from this list. And so this is somewhere where, you know, if you have 3 Bob Dylan albums, you're going to find the next one that you want to start at. And what's actually interesting about this, like a lot of our recommendation features, this actually has a little bit of a personal twist to it, which is that if you've been using Roon, and we have a sense of what kind of music you tend to listen to, this list will actually be different for different people, right? So if you like someone's, you know, their more jazzy period, you may get more of the jazzy, you know, their jazzy releases or whatever, right? So this is giving you a place to go when you have discovered Ella Fitzgerald or whoever you are discovering using Roon, right? And so as you scroll down the page here, you can see that we really wanted this page, this kind of overview tab, to give you a sense of who you're looking at, right? So I see here that Ella Fitzgerald has collaborated with Herb Ellis, and maybe I don't know him that well, but I can see that across her career, this is someone that she worked with repeatedly, and this is really cool in jazz, but you can imagine it in pop music as well, when there's a producer and an artist or 2 artists that have collaborated on each other's albums. This collaborators recommendation here is going to kind of be different every time I go to the Ella Fitzgerald page, right? I mean,
so I was doing this just the other day with Ry Cooder.
Yeah,
and
right.
that is a super, super interesting, eclectic view that you get of this guy.
It's, I mean, there have been times that, I mean, you said before about staying up all night using this stuff. I mean, it's, you go to someone like a session drummer, like Steve Gadd or something like that, and you can come back over and over and over again, and it's going to be someone different each time. So again, with Ella Fitzgerald, you know, once you've discovered her music and you found some of these releases and you're like, wow, I have added this up to my library. We're also going to show you these similar artists and help kind of put these in context. Maybe you don't know who Dinah Washington is, but it's going to say here, well, if you like Peggy Lee, that's a good recommendation for you as well.
So I was just doing this last week, Mike. There's another great feature here, because when you pull up someone that you like and you get these similar artists or artists that, based on this artist, Roon thinks you'll like, a lot of them are you're huge fans of anyway, but you just haven't favorited them in Roon, so they're not part of your favorite artist list. So one of my favorite things to do with the list that you were just talking about, this one right here, the one with the little circles around the heads, is you get that first person up there and you're going, oh wow, I really like it, but I forgot to heart them in Roon. I forgot to favorite them in Roon. Well, you favorite them, and then all of a sudden Roon becomes more rich. So Roon kind of helps you when you help it. The more you use it and the more that you heart things that you like, favorite things that you like, the better the record store guy who is Roon is to you, right?
That's exactly right. As you kind of build up this profile, it gets smarter and smarter. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, I was listening to some like a soul artist from Brooklyn that is like, it's new music, but it sounds like it's from the 60s. And Roon Radio just went off and played 8 songs in a row, all different groups that were all in this kind of retro soul vein. And I was like, wow, this thing really knows what I like. It's like almost spooky at times, right?
Okay, I've got a confession to make. People think, you know, because I put a lot of music on Streaming Music Matters and on Qobuz, and for always people are going, wow, that is so cool. Where did you find that? I'm just that cool. I sit at the cool kids table. I know people like Mike Fass that turn me on to stuff like this. Honestly, a whole lot of that stuff, at least half of that, Roone turned me on to, and I'm going, oh my God, how did I miss that? Right? That's got to be. I got to tell you, I love the GUI. I love everything that the program does. But my favorite thing is the way that it does radio and the way that it just suggests things to you that you're going, wow, I like that, but I didn't know I like that. I like that so much that would have been on my, my desert island collection or whatnot, right?
Yep. It's when it really hits, and you find when an artist pops up that you've never even heard of, that no one's ever mentioned them, they've just never come into your field of vision, and you start to kind of dig deep into their career. It's really pretty magical. But again, this was kind of one of the problems that we were feeling in past versions of Roon, is that when I use Roon Radio and I find someone new, where do I go? Where do I start? I have this one great song that I heard, and I need to kind of keep exploring. And so this is actually a good segue, David, because another thing that we were able to find is that we have seen that, especially with artists that have these very long, prolific careers, right? You have a Bob Dylan or a Prince or, any of these artists that have released 50, 60, 100 albums. It's completely overwhelming, and figuring out where to start is pretty difficult. But what we were able to kind of suss out of the data that we have is that for a lot of these artists that have these long careers, there's a period that people like are starting with. This is where, when you're listening to Ella Fitzgerald, 1956, 1964, those are the years that Ella Fitzgerald fans are listening to, right? And so again, this is, to me, is an invaluable tool for being able to discover a new artist, right? I mean, there are artists that I kind of like nod my head when they come up in conversation, but I don't actually know them that well. Like, I don't know, like I have never really gotten that into Frank Zappa personally, but like I can go to his page and I can see exactly what are the years and the albums. Where do I actually want to start with this career, right? So
that's such a great point, Mike. Any of these artists that you're not familiar with, but you really think you kind of like them. Wow, I like whoever it is. Maybe they're super popular, and you see 500 albums on a page. I don't know about you, buddy, but I'm totally stuck. I need something to at least point me in the right direction, because if not, it's going to be like a book for me, right? I'll pull on the prettiest album cover and hit play, and it could be their worst album, and I could just get a horrible impression of someone that I would really actually like quite a bit.
In past versions of Roon, we always showed the oldest album first, I believe. And I think, David, I think you've met Brian once or twice. Like, me and Brian had countless arguments about this, because, I listen to a lot of like R&B and soul, and I listen to some rap music. And so a lot of these, I listen to some rock stuff, right? So the first album is often like the big breakthrough. And the second one, either they have a sophomore slump or it's even better. But the first 3 or 4, like, there's not that many artists that really maintain it over the course of their career. I mean, the big ones have, right? But for him, Brian he loves jazz, he loves classical, right? And so for him, he's looking at artists who have developed their skills over the course of their career, and they have a middle period that's incredible. And so he always felt like the earliest first was kind of a cop out as a one size fits all way to look at someone's career, right? And so in a lot of places in 1.8, obviously you can switch to sort these things however you want, but what we're actually sorting by in a lot of these places now is popularity. And so what you're doing there is, when I go to the Ella Fitzgerald discography, let me just switch this over to albums here. When I go to this discography here, I have everything. I can sort it by the oldest first, but what I'm seeing here immediately is kind of the knowledge and insight of the Roon user base, right? This is what Roon users are listening to when they're listening to Ella Fitzgerald. And so having that kind of power at your fingertips that's, to me, that's easily worth the price of admission for this kind of experience, right? Is being able to kind of understand what you're looking at.
So we'll bring this right back up, but this is an incredible point that you're making here. And after Sujan's thing, we'll bring this back up. But I want to make a point here that I think is it was extremely relevant for me to know this and to hear this. But it's easy to manage 1,000 albums. It's even kind of easy to manage 10,000 albums. It's next to impossible to manage 1 million albums, or 2 million or 4 million albums. We just don't have that capacity. Most humans circle around 100 albums. I mean, and that's a big collection. If you circle around 100 albums, you're a pretty big music fan. But now that you've got 1 million albums, there's just like no way really to get your head around this. And unless, based on some of these features that you were just talking about, you've got access to, what are most people listening to? What were their most popular years? What do people like the most? At least at that point, you've got somewhat of a chance. Now, I am not going to promise you this is going to get you to bed before 3:30 in the morning, but I will promise you that you'll at least have a much better starting point, which is one of the reasons I really like Zoom. And one of our members, Jennifer Martin, just wrote something a minute ago. I don't know if you saw it on the bottom of the screen, but she's threatening to sue both you and I for her absolute lack of sleep.
I plead guilty on that one. Yeah, we'll take
it. I hate to cut this off sort of in the middle, and we're not going to cut it off. We're going to be back with Mike, but for right now, let's see, Mike. You go take a break, grab a beer, kiss your wife, whatever you want to do for about the next, 10 minutes or so. And I'm going to bring in, let's see, we're going to bring in Sujan. So, hey, listen, you take care and I'll see you in just a few minutes. Okay.
Thanks, David.
All right. We have got our merchandiser coming up, Miss Sujan Hong. How are you doing, Sujan? And you're on mute.
How's that?
Well, it's better because now I can actually hear you. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
It's been a while, huh?
Yeah. I think
not necessarily since we've seen each other.
Entire flip of the calendar, right? I don't know. Did we have one in January? Have we had one in January? I don't remember how long it's been.
No, we have not had one in January. I think it's been a good 4 or 5 weeks since we've done this. So, I'm super glad to be back, and thank you for. I always have to write Sujan like almost like 10 minutes before we start. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I always have to write Sujan, really kind of late in the game and go, is there any way that you can do this? Sometimes she says yes, sometimes she says no, because Sujan's probably got one of the biggest deadline jobs at Qobuz, and we just can't take her away. But we're always super, super thankful to have her on. So good to see you.
You too. It feels like I just saw you yesterday.
Yeah. Well, we did, but no one else did. It's good to see you in this capacity, I should say, right?
Yep.
So I'm going to duck out and let you tell everybody about some of the cool new releases, and maybe another story or so that you've got that's cool on Qobuz's side.
Sounds
Take
good.
care. I'll see you in a little bit.
Okay. Hey everyone, I'm Sujan, and I am here with some music picks for the week. So leading off, we have our album of the week, which is Julian Baker's Little Oblivions. This is the third studio album from the young singer-songwriter from Tennessee, and it is a doozy. She has stretched out her sound, which had often been, kind of spare, like piano and guitar, to now include bass, drums, and some additional strings, mandolin, banjo, nearly all of which is performed by her. So these new textures like really elevate her voice. They bring out an even deeper sense of anguish in this 25-year-old as she continues to like work her way through all these like thoughts in her head, which would seem pretty weighty, you know, for someone twice her age. But yeah, it's a pretty incredible album. And fans of her side project Boy Genius should take note of the track Favor, which where she is joined by her bandmates Lucy Dacus and Phoebe Bridgers. So Little Oblivions is going to be available tomorrow from Matador in $24.96. And next up, we have a trio of new releases from some of our like beloved elder statesmen. The combined age of these guys is 241, which is pretty incredible. We're going to start off with Willie Nelson, who continues to churn out the tunes on the regular, even at the age of 87. He is releasing That's Life. This is his second set of Frank Sinatra covers. Nelson has credited Sinatra as the person who taught him how to sing, and Sinatra in turn reportedly called him his favorite singer. So there, you know, is obviously a lot of mutual love and admiration there. The songs include Willie's takes on You Make Me Feel So Young, Luck Be a Lady, and I Won't Dance, which features Diana Krall. And we're going to have this in 24-44-1 from Legacy. And then next we have 1970 from 2016 Nobel Prize winner Bob Dylan. He is turning 80 this May. This is not newly recorded music, but a collection of long sought-after tracks from 1970. This set includes outtakes from the Self-Portrait and New Morning sessions that happened 50 years ago, and all of the 9 songs that he recorded with George Harrison from a legendary, you know, secret studio session in New York on May 1st, 1970. There are 74 tracks in all, and this is actually going to be a download-only release and available in 16-bit from Columbia tomorrow. Third, we've got Alice Cooper, who at 73 is the youngest of this venerable trio. His latest, Detroit Stories, it's also his 28th album overall. And as the title suggests, it's a tribute to the city where he was born and moved back to in the late 60s. He's got some other Detroit players helping him out, including Wayne Kramer from the MC5, bassist Paul Randolph. And he's also back with his, you know, longtime producer Bob Ezrin, who produced some of Cooper's earliest works in the 70s. And this is coming from Ear Music in 24-48. My next pick is the British soul singer Laura Mvula, who returns with an EP called 1F, or If, I'm not sure. But anyway, it's her first release in nearly 5 years. So despite receiving Mercury Prize nominations for her first 2 albums, starting with 2013 Sing to the Moon, Laura Mvula was dropped from her label. So but just this week, she performed her first show in, I think, about 3 years via live stream and announced this EP, which is actually made up of reworkings of her catalog. She's added like synths and beats to kind of punch up some of these older songs, and they sound really great. This is going to be available in 24-44-1 from Atlantic. And then finally, we have an album that you can only stream and download on Qobuz starting tomorrow. It's 50 years of funk and soul live at the Fox Theater from the legendary funk band from Oakland, California, Tower of Power. This was recorded back in June 2018 to mark a half century of the ever-shifting band. Somehow they fit 17 musicians plus like a full string section on stage, and it is all captured here in 24.96. It's coming from Artistry Music tomorrow. And those are my picks for the week.
These are, you had some fantastic ones. Alice Cooper was actually, I'm dating myself, that was actually my very first concert.
That is an incredible first concert. I love it.
Yeah, it was all cool until my mother saw Alice Cooper, and then she was going like, what is this guy doing? What are you going to see this guy? It was totally hell. And then of course one of my all-time favorite bands, Tower of Power. We've had this discussion. I've been waiting for this to come out for a long time. And so I'm super, super excited about the new Tower of Power. This group's been together since 1971, and they are still just going so strong. It's just one of my all-time favorite consistent bands.
It's a great release, and there is also a video to go along with it, a DVD, and I think the performance is going to air on PBS at some point, so we'll definitely have
I'm not sure if we've got it up there now, but we'll have the high res version available on the download store either now or soon, right?
Tomorrow. Yep. 24.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Sujan, thank you so much for taking your time. You're always very much appreciated, and absolutely one of the most favorite segments on the show from our fan feedback. So thanks again for being with us.
All right. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye. Okay, we're gonna bring Mike back on. I'm hoping that Mike has had time to get in touch with his attorneys about this suit that we're facing from Jennifer. I'm really kind of worried about that.
I think we'll be able to figure out some kind of settlement there. But yeah, I was distracted just adding all of those albums that Sujan was just running us through. Some good picks in there. That's good. That's good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a couple of questions that are absolutely relevant that I want to get to before we hop back into the slides. Jeff Centron writes, is there any benefit to favoriting artists in Roon if you've already favorited them in Qobuz? And yes, there is. Roon has got this really cool feature so that you can see Qobuz on Roon. On the left-hand side, if you go to Discover, I think it is, on that list, there's a place there that says Qobuz. So you can pop on Qobuz there and see all of the artists that you have favorited, anything that you favorited, your playlists, artists, songs, any of that stuff. If you've hearted them in Qobuz, this is a way to put them into your Roon collection without having to go back and forth and back and forth. So let's say you favorited Neil Young and that's one of your favorite artists, right? It's going to have a heart in it under Qobuz in Roon. But what you'll want to do is go to all of those artists and albums and playlists and enter add to my library. And then once you do that, that's going to be in your overall library. So this is it's a convenience feature, I think, as much as anything. And then if you're just like, you got everything on Qobuz and you just like the way it works in Roon like that, you can always go to Qobuz, find your playlist, your artist, your songs, whatever you like. So there's a couple of ways to look at it there, but I've got a ton of stuff favorited in Qobuz, obviously, but I do like to go to Roon, see what I've got favorited, and then just add that to my list. Yeah. Was that about right, Mike?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Yeah, and Valence is also. I have a little echo there. Valence is also using your artist favorites in Roon as part of the way that these recommendations are developed, right? So the more that you are listening to your favorite artists, and also the more that you are, favoriting albums, favoriting artists, favoriting tracks, this is all just going to kind of make the recommendations better, right? So these are great ways to kind of help Roon understand what you like and improve the quality of the recommendations over time.
And you may know this guy, Johan Court. What an absolute! He's just a total card. I love this guy, but he's about as big a music fan, I think, as you are. I'd like to put myself in that category, but you guys just blow me away. Joanne's always coming up with some kind of cool stuff that I've never heard, but he's really, really into the radio, and that's really saying a lot when you've got somebody that's that knowledgeable about music. Johan works for Kef and then also Hegel, and just a huge music fan.
Yeah, just really quickly, the live radio is another area that the Roon community has just been an incredible asset to us. I mean, it's powering all of these recommendations, but we had this idea that if we created a way for Roon users to sort of volunteer and help us curate this directory of live radio stations, maybe we could get enough stations together to actually have a directory, and you could go show me jazz stations or show me stations in Paris. And so we decided to give it a shot, and we built the tool and we put it on our community site. And I think in a matter of weeks, there were thousands of stations in the directory, and it was easily enough for us to launch. And even today, if you are using Roon and there's a station that's local to you that you love, and you're not seeing it in the directory, you can come on our community site and you can talk to some of these volunteers and our curation team, and they will look into it and they'll see if we can find the stream, and it'll be in Roon like the next day if it's available, right? So this is something that again, the Roon community is so passionate about music and about the product and about kind of working together to give everybody access to better music. It's a pretty magical thing for us. It's an incredible piece of the puzzle, and they've localized Roon into 15 languages, and they've done all of our radio directories, and we're gonna we're always thinking about new kind of ways to tap into how passionate Roon users are about this stuff. So it's very exciting for us.
Yeah. And then, let's see, we've got kind of one more from the last segment that I'll go ahead and answer now. Mario writes, I can't see he's talking about the albums Sujan was talking about. I can't see the albums in the new releases section. You won't be able to, because Sujan, she comes on here and this is a special segment that she's going to tell you what's going to be available first thing tomorrow. So that's why you're not seeing some of the that's why you're not seeing the releases that Sujan is talking about, but check back with us tomorrow. That's why we have Sujan on, so that you folks can get the first hint of what's going to actually be coming in tomorrow. So good question. But at this point,
she's got early access there. David, if I could
go in an hour, I just can't even believe that. It feels like we've been going about 10 minutes, but I want to, if you got time, Mike, let's just keep going with this.
Absolutely. There was one question I saw in the chat that I wanted to also answer, which was about the In Their Prime, the feature that I was showing before. And I just wanted to say, it was saying, is this an editorial thing? We do not have a team of editors picking this stuff out. It's all based on what Roon users are listening to and the way that Valence is able to analyze all that data, right? So we can look at someone's career and say, well, they only, they don't have that many albums, or they have a huge catalog and everyone's listening to these years. And this is just kind of the magic of what Valence does, right? So, there's sometimes it comes out in funny ways, like the Herbie Hancock In Their Prime is from the last few years. Because everyone loves that. I think it's like a Joni Mitchell's cover album that he did. And so that's been so overwhelmingly popular with Roon users that it's like drowning out Maiden Voyage and Rocket and all this classic Herbie Hancock stuff. So
yeah, but that stuff is still there. That stuff is still recommended. It's just not maybe number one. That's cool though, because that's still very useful. People want to know what's happening, right now.
Absolutely. It's really, really powerful tool for kind of understanding artists. So yeah, I would absolutely be game to hang out a little bit longer and continue kind of going through. I didn't even get to any of the classical stuff yet. So
no. We're well, like I said, if this was uncomfortable at 5 minutes till 5, we both know it, and we will just go ahead and end it. But I had already asked Mike. I said, look, a lot of times these things will go to 5:30. Are you okay to hang out with that? And he was going, as Mike is, he of course said, I'd be more than happy to do that. So yeah. That's a great question, and I'm glad you were able to answer that. It really reminds me a lot of those game shows that they go, oh, you got a lifeline, right? And then you can ask, I can't even remember what it's on. My wife watches these things sometimes, but you can ask the whole audience. So, well, there's like really literally hundreds and hundreds of people in the audience, and they're always going to pick out the thing that's probably the most popular, the thing that you should have thought about. So the bigger the Roon audience gets, even the better that is. But seriously, to me, when I go to a new artist, I want to know what the big fans are thinking. This is the cool thing. If you want to sit at the cool kids table, you got to listen to this particular album from this particular artist.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
let's you want to bring back up the presentation and let's
I'm gonna just change gears here from Ella Fitzgerald and Herbie Hancock really quickly. So I was showing before the overview, the artist overview kind of tab here. And I just wanted to switch over to this other view that we have. So the overview tab is going to show you all of the content in your library and all of these appearances and the recommendations. The discography tab is kind of giving you this really comprehensive view of everything that the artist has ever released. And this is an incredibly powerful tool for all sorts of artists, and composers. And I'll get into that in a minute. But I'm going to just switch this here really quickly over to the recordings view. And you see I can look at albums, I can look at recordings. And so when I switch this over for Justin Timberlake here, you see that I kind of get this timeline view of every single recording that he has ever released. That's a pretty overwhelming list there. But when I open up this focus panel here, in past versions of Roon, focus was a feature that would allow you to filter down your library, but it was only available in your collection. In Roon 1.8, we've made this feature work for all of the music in the world. And so you can see as soon as I open this up, it's very easy to see across everything that Justin Timberlake has ever recorded. I can see exactly who the producers and the composers and the performers that he has worked with. And I kind of have this immediate context for what I'm looking at. And so I can take his work with the producer Timberland, and I can filter all of these recordings down. And in a second, I'm able to see, well, Timberland did 4 tracks on Justin Timberlake's first album, and they worked together on the second and the third album. And kind of sandwiched here right in the middle in 2005, I see this Black Eyed Peas album. And so when I click through to this album, what I see is that track 3 is in fact performed by the Black Eyed Peas and Justin Timberlake. And when I go into the credits, it's very clear from the credits here that the producer of this track is Timberland, right? So by starting on Justin Timberlake and looking at all of his recordings and filtering down by a producer, I'm able to find interesting intersections. Whether it occurred on a Justin Timberlake album or not, right? And so whether you're a fan of pop music or not, you can imagine what this kind of tool gives you access to for jazz and classical and rock and reggae and whatever genres you listen to. So I'm actually, David, I'm just going to move on here to some kind of classical content really quickly.
Before you do that, we've got a basic question that I think what bears answering. There's no name associated with it, but I've asked several times, does 1.8 from Mac OS work natively on the new Mac M1? I'm guessing it does, doesn't it?
It does not run natively yet. We are working on it, and we have that is a process that is in motion, but not quite yet. So okay, it'll run on an Apple M1 device, but it's not running natively quite yet. But it's on the list. It's coming.
Okay. Thanks for the answer.
Sure. Yeah. So we spent a lot of time in 1.8 just thinking about classical music, and there's a thing that our support team has answered hundreds, if not thousands, of times. And I actually just want to quickly give a shout out to those guys. They have been they have had a busy couple weeks, and it has been a very, from our perspective, a hugely successful release. But they have been busy, and I wanted to give a tip of my hat to those guys who've been answering tons of questions. But this question that they've been answering for years from users is, where are my Beethoven albums? And it's kind of a funny question, because I think we all probably know what someone is looking for when they say that. They're Beethoven albums, but obviously Beethoven died in 1827. He didn't actually release any albums. And so the question is it makes sense, but if you're going to be kind of pedantic about it, it doesn't make sense. And I think that Roon 1.7 was actually kind of handled this pretty poorly. So this is Roon 1.7 again. And you see that when I look at the Beethoven page in 1.7, what I see here is that Beethoven has 3 appearances and 9 production credits. And obviously that is all completely wrong, right? There are no Beethoven appearances on any albums or production credits or any of that. What's happening here is that Roon 1.7 didn't really know how to help you find actual recordings of Beethoven. Now, Roon 1.7 did give you access to Beethoven's compositions, right? This is actually what Beethoven produced during his lifetime, the symphonies and concertos, and Beethoven is a composer, right? But this is kind of all you had access to in Roon 1.7. And so we've really spent a lot of time thinking about this. And when you land on Beethoven in Roon 1.8, the very first thing you see are the albums in your library that include performances of Beethoven, right? And so we really wanted to close that loop and make it easy for you to find Beethoven in the music that you've collected. What we also wanted to do here is give you access to these compositions that exist in your library. And again, just like I was showing before for Ella Fitzgerald, these are the recommended albums for Beethoven, right? And so as I listen to these and decide these are great, I want to add them to my library, this section is going to kind of get filled in with new recommendations. And it's always a place that I can go. It's, again, David, I'm going to keep coming back to this. It's like your friendly neighborhood record store clerk. It's always going to have a Beethoven recommendation for you. And so this, again, is driven by valence and what Roon users are listening to. And we were also able, using valence, to get a sense for classical composers about which forms they tend to work in. So for Beethoven, symphonies, sonatas, concertos, string quartets, these are not the only forms that Beethoven worked in, but when people are listening to Beethoven, these are places where they might start, right? And so if you're a huge classical fan, you probably know that very well. But having easy access to these compositions is still a hugely valuable tool. But it's particularly valuable if you're kind of new to Beethoven. And what's nice is that because Focus has been integrated across Roon 1.8, it's not just about your library anymore. I can actually click here where it says symphonies, and it's going to take me straight through to all of these Beethoven compositions. And you can see this is now focused on symphonies, and I have this clear list of all of the symphonies that Beethoven has written. It's sorted by popularity. I can sort this by when it was composed, or by title or opus number. And I also have the ability on this screen to use Focus. Now, I'm looking at only symphonies, so the only instrumentation I have available here is our orchestras, obviously. But again, these are incredibly powerful tools for browsing all of the Beethoven recordings that you will find on Qobuz or in your library. So again, this page is kind of built for exploring Beethoven, and it's even going to kind of look at all of the new releases that are coming out every week, show you the Beethoven. I'm using the term Beethoven albums here, right? The albums that have come out recently that include performances of Beethoven, and looking again at Roon user listening history, combined with what Valence is able to understand, we can see here who are the kind of the top conductors of Beethoven across all of the music that Roon users are listening to. And again, because all of this is sort of tied in with Focus and with Valence and with Qobuz, when I click on Daniel Barenboim here, I'm not just kind of taken to his page as like you're on Daniel Barenboim, figure it out yourself. I'm looking at all of his recordings focused in on Beethoven. So I have a kind of immediate access in a single click to, not just knowing who the conductors are that have performed Beethoven, but I can see, by release date. I can see this by popularity. I can say I don't want any excerpts. Only show me the times when this has been performed with the complete recordings of these, of these Beethoven compositions. And so again, all of these screens are designed to kind of be tied together, and these are the things that keep us up at night, right, David? Just clicking around and having these pages all sort of linked together is a pretty kind of incredible way to discover music.
I call it the rabbit hole, and man, I go down them so many times, and you don't really think about it really, and that's why it keeps you up till late at night or early in the morning, whatever you're going. I'm just going, oh wow, this is interesting. I'm just going to listen to this one more recording.
That's exactly
like one more turns into, oh well, that was super interesting. I just got this. Just is one more.
Right. I mean, you go from Beethoven to this page, which is focusing on a particular symphony. You see the top conductors. You see other symphonies that you might want to browse to next. And then again, you have kind of immediate access to all of the recordings of this particular symphony. And because Focus is integrated on all of these screens, I can see only the Leonard Bernstein performances. I can see only the times it was performed by the Berlin Philharmonic. So again, for classical listeners, whether it's kind of all you listen to and you've been listening to it for decades, or you're new to classical, these features give you incredible ways to discover. I mean, there's so much music out there on Qobuz and in people's libraries. I mean, I know that a lot of people are just using these tools just to rediscover the music on their hard drives, and when you combine this with Qobuz, it's pretty overwhelming. So I want to just talk really quickly here about the album screen. So in Roon 1.7, this is our album screen in the previous version, and you can see on the right side we kind of had some little recommendations there at the top. There's 2 recommended albums, and it's funny, we had people over the years say, well, those, you're giving me recommendations here. It feels like advertising. I just want to see Kind of Blue. Like, stop pushing these recommendations in my face. To me, being able to kind of keep exploring from an album that I love, I've listened to it at least once a week for years, and what else is out there. But we really kind of spent a lot of time thinking about this in Room 1.8. So
I can't even imagine someone not wanting that. And how could it be an advertisement? Nobody's making anything. It's like Roon doesn't make more money when you click on one of the suggestions. I love this. I was hoping you were going to actually take it and go, because one of the things I always do on that section is I click more, and I see the others that are recommended as well.
That's right.
2 is cool, but I'm a total pig. So if you can give me like 5 or 6,
that's right.
7,
yeah,
I'm into it. Yeah.
So, I mean, this was actually something that we spent a lot of time thinking about. On all of these screens, the music that you've collected, the music in your library. I mean, I think everybody who uses Roon thinks about music as something that is theirs, right? The music that is important to me, that is meaningful to me. So we really wanted all these pages to kind of focus on your music first. And so when I land on Kind of Blue, the first thing I see is this track list, right? And as I scroll down the page, I get this sense of, okay, where did Kind of Blue fit into Miles Davis's career? Like, give me this kind of timeline view. And as I keep scrolling, I get this sense of these recommendations again. And so all of this stuff is tied together in a way that I can start at an album like Kind of Blue, which is probably the most famous jazz album of all time. I can click through to Cannonball Adderley's Something Else, and I can scroll down from there and see where that falls into his discography. And then I can kind of see, okay, I'm on this voyage of exploration here, and I'm getting a sense that Something Else was part of a moment that Roon users are listening to on a regular basis, right? Which is this idea of hard bop jazz during these years was really kind of at its peak, right? This is a moment when Roon users are listening to this music on a consistent basis. And so this is kind of telling me, okay, this is the context in which this particular album was released. And so I really get this sense of what else was going on at that time, what else was going on with these performers and in this particular genre.
That is such a great example that you've pulled up, because people think Miles Davis, and I think almost everybody thinks Kind of Blue. That's just sort of the central point. But Miles had such a diverse career, music style wise. You could go for, he was not the same as he is on Kind of Blue as On the Corner.
That's
way different, right? So this is a really neat feature that you guys have got pulled on there, and one that you pull up Miles Davis and you're literally going to get hundreds of albums. I think you have to have a starting point if that's your goal, is to learn about the artist.
Yeah, and I mean, we've always had this very deep credits metadata, and so a thing that we spent a lot of time thinking about here is this is the credits data in Roon 1.7, and you can see that we're giving you this list and we're showing you all the composers and the saxophonists and this list you can read through this and get a sense of who's on this album, but we had this kind of idea that like the most important thing when you're looking at these credits is who's actually playing the music, right? And so we spent a whole bunch of time building this huge list of the roles and who is the most, who are the most notable performers. And so we were able to say we can look at all of the credits for this album and pull out the people who are actually playing the instruments that you're listening to. And then we can give the composers their own section where we give them kind of a proper presentation so you know who actually wrote the music that you're listening to. And we built this feature, and I actually, David, I don't know if you're more in the know than I am, but to me, I always thought of Kind of Blue as like the piano is Bill Evans. Like it's just I don't know. It's like that's when I think about the personnel on that album. But when we built the feature and we had focus integrated all over the place, we realized that like, oh wow, I know Wynton Kelly, not as well as I know Bill Evans, but oh wow, like there's 4 tracks with Bill Evans and 2 tracks with Wynton Kelly. And so when I click through here, I can get a sense of exactly which tracks Bill Evans is actually playing on, right? And again, because Focus is integrated into all these screens, I can see who performed on which track and who wrote which track and which kind of production credits are involved at the track level. And so this was something that we really wanted to bring out additional context and say, none of this data has been hidden or removed, right? I can still kind of see that somewhere along the way, Robert Palmer wrote some liner notes for Kind of Blue, right? Like all these credits are still there. But, when you're looking at an album and you hear an incredible solo and you click over to the credits to see, who is playing guitar, who is actually playing trumpet here, right? This page is going to kind of pull that out. And when you find out like, oh yeah, like, of course the harmonica on that track is Stevie Wonder. Stevie Wonder is going to be pulled right out there because obviously he's very prominent and he's playing one of the instruments that we've designed this feature to work around. And so, we put a lot of thought into how we can kind of make this stuff even more contextual. So that's another kind of area that we put a lot of effort into.
So all of this stuff really works too. Just practically speaking, I mean, these are features, but just practically speaking, they work so well. Last night I pulled up Christian McBride, and it's going through the playlist. After I finished the album that I was listening to, it starts going through what I think I'm going to like. Roone Radio just starts automatically afterwards. And this track came on, and I'm going, wow, Christian sounds really good, but this piano player, who is this? And so I immediately go to the credits. I click it on, find it's this guy named Cyrus Chestnut, and he's got this album out called Soul Food that Christian plays on. And are you familiar with the album?
I don't think I actually know that one. I know that.
So at any rate, I start playing this album, and it's like, okay, all of a sudden, I'm a huge fan. This guy was but just to your point, and from a practical standpoint, if you're a music lover, if you love knowing who the guy is playing with the other guy or who the producer is or any of that kind of stuff, this is just an invaluable thing. So now you start thinking, and I know we're a little premature on this, but I do want to talk about pricing a little bit when we finish, because once you see what this stuff does, before you look at Roone and figure out what it does, a lot of people just look at the price point and go, yeah, no, I'm not going to do this because I can manage my own music. But once you kind of see what this stuff does, you start going, well, actually, this is a pretty heavy bargain. So sorry to interrupt you there, but we'll talk about that in just a little bit. But yeah, sure. Keep going. This is fascinating.
Yeah. So I mean, I can. I do want to show some of what we've done on the home screen, but really quickly, we've spent a lot of time. I know that like for my wife, she's always she goes to the genres first, right? That's the easiest way for her to find a way to the music that's in the you know, her current mood, right? So these pages in Roon 1.7 were based on your library. They would show your albums, they would show your artists in that genre, and so we couldn't actually show you any genres that didn't exist because there wouldn't be anything on the page if you don't have any artists or albums from that genre. So in 1.8, we've gone back, and Valence is actually generating recommendations on all of these pages, right? So I'm on the R&B page right now. I have a bunch of R&B recommendations here. As I scroll down, I have recommended albums that are not yet in my library. This is not my whole library. I'm quite sure I have Intervisions and Fresh in my real library, but I'm using a subset here, and I have access to kind of all of the subgenres, right? So even whether these are in my library or not, it's another way that I can really explore deep into the music that's in my library, or the music that's out there in Qobuz that I haven't actually been exposed to yet. And all
question for you on this screen, Mike. I was looking at this last night. Do the sizes of the picture, is that any indication of anything, or is that just, do you listen to soul more than you do alternative R&B, and is that why the picture is large, or is it just random?
The ordering of the ordering of these boxes is based on what's in my library. So I have more soul than funk, and I have more funk than contemporary R&B, but the treatment and the size of the boxes is just a purely an aesthetic choice.
So of sorts, you basically got a pie chart, you know, right in front of you that kind of shows you what your biggest things are. That's so cool. I thought that was the case, but I was going, I'm going to ask Mike about that tomorrow. So thanks for
absolutely. I mean, it was a good segue with talking about pie charts. So my wife will go to the genre browser when she's not sure what she wants to listen to. For me, when I have that, this sort of overwhelming choice that I think anybody who uses a streaming service feels, there's just everything is at your fingertips and you don't actually know where to start. We really spent a lot of time thinking about how to make the home screen a solution to that problem. So this is what I've been listening to and what I've been adding lately. That's a feature that has carried over from 1.7. New releases for you is another feature that came over from 1.7. But this kind of stats feature is something that we've called this like the dashboard internally. So this is giving me a very sort of clear sense of all of the music that I've been listening to lately, right? And so you can see here, this is my last month of listening. Clearly, I'm listening to a lot of music on Sundays while I was getting 1.8 ready to release. I'm just like sitting around here, like finishing up the product and getting everything done. And what I can do is looking at this kind of calendar is I can open up this particular day. I guess this is Valentine's Day that I picked here, and I can see exactly which genres I was listening to that day, which artists I was listening to, which albums, and it gives me a really, really kind of clear sense of which weeks did I listen to a lot of music and which weeks did I spend too much time on the phone, not with you, David, but with other people. So I also have this kind of overview of what I've been listening to, and I had this set to the last month, but I can actually flip this back. I think this particular Roon database is about 2 years old, and you can see where the bulk of my listening over the last 2 years has gone, right? It's a lot of jazz, a lot of R&B, some alternative rock and rap, and these are just lists that I can go to when I don't know what to listen to. They're always there, they're available, they're updated based on what I've been listening to this week or 2 years ago or whatever. And so this is a really insightful way to kind of understand my listening habits. And I have access to live radio stations that I've been listening to, artists that I've played over the last few weeks. This genre section is also based on my listening. So this is something that's going to be, I can kind of come here every day and it's going to give me a new selection of genres based on my listening. And again, all of this stuff, recommended artists, all of this is kind of driven by Valence and its understanding of my listening and kind of what Roon users are listening to in general. So David, this is one of the last things I wanted to actually demo here. This is a feature that I spent a lot of time with our developers getting right, and I'm really super proud of this one. And it's a little bit of a gamble to do in a demo here, but I'm happy with who I got because every time I come to the home screen, I get somebody else related to my listening. So I'm a big Paul Simon fan. I think I was actually you were talking about your first concert before, and I was going to say that for me, it was New Kids on the Block at Jones Beach. But I think my actual first concert was Paul Simon in Central Park with my parents.
Oh my gosh, you got to go to one of those.
I was pretty young, but anyway, so we had this idea, which we ended up calling Performing the Music of. And the idea was that there are, pop artists who don't write their own music. And then there are artists who do write their own music, right? So the singer-songwriters and so on. But some of the singer-songwriters, when they write music, that music then also gets covered by lots of other people.
Right.
And so we kind of had this idea, like, can we actually detect when that's happening, when someone gets covered by other people a lot, right? And so we kind of played around with it, and I think we were reasonably successful here, right? So what you're seeing here are songs written by Paul Simon that were then performed by Paul Simon and then subsequently performed by other people. So I'm on this Paul Simon page, and again, I didn't plan for Paul Simon here, but immediately what I see is Bob Dylan and Brad Meldau and Paul Desmond and Wings and Patti Smith, Al Cooper, Dr. Lonnie Smith, Wes Montgomery. I mean, you can kind of keep going on here, right? And so this is something where when I come to the home screen, I'm going to get a new one of these kind of lists of cover versions every time.
Nick, can you actually pull that up by artist, or is that just something that's sort of a surprise?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is that these also just are something that kind of just shows up on the artist page, right? So when I go to Paul Simon's page, I have my recommended albums and my collaborators, and then a little bit further down the page, I have his in their prime kind of heyday, and I have access to the same data here, right? So again, this overview tab for an artist gives you all of these ways to explore an artist, whether they're new to you or you've been listening to Paul Simon for decades. There's kind of always going to be something here to discover. And if you're not sure where you want to start, that's kind of where the home screen comes in. So that was kind of one of the last things that I really wanted to touch on here. We talked about the genres and the classical stuff, but that home screen stuff is something that we're pretty excited about, and we have lots more plans for what we want to do on that screen to make sure that it can continue to be a place that you go when you're not sure what you want to listen to, right? I can go there 5 minutes before I start cooking dinner and find something almost every time. So that feels pretty good.
That's really difficult to do a lot of times too, because I mean, just like you had alluded to a little while ago, when you're listening to a service that have got, millions of tracks, it's often like drinking from a fire hydrant. It's just, it's just too much, and you really do need something to kind of get you focused somewhat, right? So you guys have just done a great job with that. Now, I would like to just remind people of their own user interfaces. So when you open up whatever, it doesn't matter what kind of server or music streamer you've got, you think about the experience you have when you open up that app that you've got, and as compared to what Mike has just taken us through. And we're not talking about a small difference here. We're talking about a user experience that is absolutely 180 degrees different, or 180 degrees better. It's just a much better user experience. So I'm glad we did this, because I am forever telling my friends that have got Qobuz, do you have, I think my question is usually, do you have Roon yet? And so many times people will come back with, I don't really need Roon. And then I have to go into this, not because I make anything off Roon, I don't, but because they're my friends and I want them to have the best experience. I'm forever going into this explanation that takes me 25 or 30 minutes to get through about Roon. So I want everybody to have it, because I want everybody to have this kind of an experience, and it's just impossible to have this kind of a rich experience with any other GUI that I know of.
It's hard to kind of explain it to someone. It's easier when they see that kind of walkthrough that I was just doing. But to me, the experience of using using the UI and kind of browsing around, and this, I saw someone in the comments said like the rabbit hole experience. I mean, for us, it's even going back to the Sulus days. At that time, right, the iPod was pretty dominant, right? And for us, the experience of this, like, well, you go to the artist list and then you scroll down to the artist that you like and the album and the track, and then you go back. And, for us, we wanted every single one of these pages. Your music is the first thing that you see, the albums in your library, the tracks on the album. That's what you're going to see first. But a quick scroll down the page, there's 100 different directions that you can go from there. And it's kind of like we just want you to keep moving forward and exploring. And then we want to combine that with the ability to play music all over the house. I mean, David, when you're talking to people about Qobuz and Roon and what does it offer you, it's hard to explain the browsing experience, but the experience of being able to say, I mean, in my little home here, we have like 7 zones of audio, and some of them are like, I have a Unity Atom in the living room that I love. It's absolutely fantastic piece of gear. On the patio in my garage, it's like a Raspberry Pi, like you were saying you built. I put it together for $70, and I bought a pair of speakers that can survive the winter here in Connecticut, and I can link those 2 zones together, and it sounds fantastic, right? And I can listen to Qobuz when I go from the kitchen to the grill and back and forth, and it's that experience is to me is also kind of worth the price of admission, right? But it's the package.
Yeah, and I know this thing has just like gone on forever, but there's one more thing I might want to mention, or that we should mention. We talked about this when Enno was on the call the last time. I remember my very first experience with Roone, and I think that was maybe it was just prior to Tidal, or maybe it was just after, but I remember hooking up a bunch of old hard drives that had absolutely no rhyme or reason, and I had tons of stuff on all these hard drives. And the cool thing was Roone found them all, put metadata with a whole lot of them, more than I would ever have time to. And so it's not only really cool to use with streaming services, but if you happen to have been one of those people that have collected music like for the last 15, 20 years, so because technology changed, I got a new hard drive, and now I'm using this, and I guarantee you've forgotten about a whole lot of the stuff you've got. So you plug your hard drive, your old hard drive, into Roone, and it finds this stuff that you just totally forgot. So there's just so many cool features. So I hope this time that Mike and I have had together around Roone gives you some idea that I'm not just like some fanboy. I think this is a program and a user interface and experience that you simply cannot get anywhere else. So while I am, while I do work for Qobuz exclusively, I wouldn't want to use it without Roone. I just wouldn't want to. So we're such great partners, and we really, really appreciate not only the program, but this team of brilliant people that you've got that absolutely updates this program every single day. I mean, there's upgrades that are happening every single day. So with this, and to me, this speaks of the value of the product, Mike, because with Roone, you don't just get some UI that's standard and use it, hope you like it. We're checking out for the for a vacation for the next 6 months, and we'll check on it when it gets back. You've got this thing being constantly updated and constantly improved by people who really know music, by people who really love music, and by people who really understand category, stuff like that, because they've been doing it for years. So hope you try it out. Roone is free for how many days? I think you guys do a 30-day trial?
I think it's 14 days, but
Yeah, if you get a 14-day trial, I can promise you one thing, you're going to be kind of scratching the surface, but it will give you enough data, I think, if you actually use it for 14 days to be able to go, this is exactly what I need. And I'm not saying this is for every single person in the world. All my wife wants to do is hit Elton John or Billy Joel and walk away. And the music is you're barely even able to hear it. And she just doesn't want to mess with anything. We've had Sonos for years. She goes, oh yeah, I know how to do that. No, don't make me learn anything. I just want to do this. This is for a music lover, someone who really understands the need of some sort of a music management beyond what your mind could handle when you're dealing with these millions of tracks.
You can just hit play on Elton John also at that. I mean, that's, we know that it's used on 3 phones and 2 iPads and 4 laptops around the house in every room. So we really do try to think about everyone in the house using it. And just to actually speak to your point that you were just saying, we really are thinking about how to improve Roon every day. I mean, our team is, we live and breathe this stuff, and the reception to 1.8 has, like I was saying before, it's been completely overwhelming, and we've gotten so many incredible compliments, people who love how it looks and people who are saying it's changed how I'm browsing music and it's a godsend, and that's been great. And we've also heard from people who said, hey, you changed this feature and I didn't like how you did this, and I just spent the last 2 weeks making sure that, like, the 5 things or the 8 things that people have been saying, I wish that you could change this back. We put a whole bunch of them back just in the last 3 days. So it's been
typically the only. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was just going to say that, to us, I mean, we have a lot that we want to do this year. I see someone is talking about using Roon outside of the home, on the go kind of stuff. I can, I can't make any promises on timelines or anything like that about that, but I can say that, like, this is something that we are actively working on, and there's designs happening, and there's even some code being written in that area. But when we drop everything and we hear that from Roon users, hey, I subscribe, and you change the way tags work, or you change the way playlists work, and it's not working for me the way that it used to, we're reading that feedback, and we know this is your music. This is how you listen to music at home. It's very personal for people. And so we say, okay, on the go, whatever the other features that we're working on, we'll put that aside for a couple of weeks. We got to fix these things and whatever. Right. So we are, these are things that we are actively thinking about. And I definitely would just say to everybody, if you've been on the community site lately, you've said, I don't like this thing, I love this thing, or whatever. Maybe, like, I'm sending little private messages to people on the community site every day saying, hey, can you explain a little bit more about why the numbering on a box set is important, or this or that, right? And we're out there listening to that stuff all of the time, and it's for us, we know that people subscribe to Roon and they expect it to keep getting better every week, every month, every year, and so it's we accept that challenge every day, and we got a lot more coming this year, so it's really exciting for us.
We all have knee-jerk reactions, especially when you've been dealing with something for a lot of years or a lot of months, and then that something changes. One thing I've learned about humans is the only ones that like change are wet babies. Most of the time you make a change and it's like, oh, it doesn't work with my psyche. It's not the way that I'm thinking. And sometimes you do have to reprogram yourself. So some of these features that are different or look a little different, I even made a complaint I've got an inside channel to these guys, and I'm going, well, guys, couldn't you do this one thing? And then after I started looking at it, I realized, hold on, this is my fault. They do have this information that I was looking for. It's clearly there. So sometimes it's just knee jerk, and it doesn't look exactly the same. And but I really, really appreciate the fact that you guys look at these forums, and then you're actively going, hey, did we really make the right move? That's a very hard thing to do when your life is so tied up into this thing, and you're going, I just worked the last 4 weeks of my life on this one feature that doesn't seem to be going over as good as I thought it was going to be. it takes a really special company to look at that and go, you know what, let's try to remove ourselves emotionally. And, do we really need to do that? You guys, I really appreciate that about you.
Yeah, the perspective is you have to kind of like look at the totality of the people that are using Roon. There are people who have been with us from the beginning, and we hold their opinion in high esteem, and they give us great ideas, and we've implemented them, and we are listening to their ideas. And then there are people who did a free trial, and they tried it out, and they said, okay, it was cool, but maybe not for me. But here's what would have made it work for me if you had done these 3 things. And so every day we're balancing that full spectrum of people who are, lifetimers and people who are trialers, and there's tons of decisions that we make every day, and they're tough decisions about what to work on next, and which kinds of things to prioritize, and which kinds of things to make customizable, and all that kind of stuff. But what I can say is that we are always listening to all of that feedback. I mean, it's been hard. There's been literally millions of hits on our community site over the last couple of weeks. It's been slowing our servers down, and we were looking into upgrading stuff, and it's been tough to keep up with. I can't say that I've read every single post, because it's like
you can't. There's no way.
But when I know that I talk to our support team, I talk to customers. We're out there every day reading this stuff, and we know that like the people who listen to Roon, it is a little bit of it's not that secret anymore, but it's like a little bit of a secret society of people who are really, really serious about this stuff. And so
absolutely,
for people who care about music, and they care about how it sounds, and how it's reproduced in your home, and how you find new music, we take this stuff very seriously, and we really appreciate all of the kind words and all of the feedback. It's been an exciting couple weeks.
I have 2 things left, and then I'm gonna let you go back to your lovely wife and enjoy your new home. Number 1, and I should have looked at this. I can't believe that I didn't, because I sometimes think I know everything about Roon, and you don't. But I bought into Roon like way long ago, a lifetime, and would never be without it. But back then, I think the pricing has changed a good bit since then. But can you tell our listeners what you could expect to pay monthly, or if you wanted a lifetime membership for Roon?
Yep. So the monthly subscription, I believe, is about $13 a month. So you can sign up for a month, try it out, decide it's not for you. I think there's a 30% difference if you go annual. So the annual is about, I think it's $120 a year. And then if you decide that you can't live with Roon, you're in for the long haul, we also offer the lifetime subscription, which is $699. So
I thought it was $800. Okay.
Yeah.
So now if you think about this, $800 for just a program, if you left it at that, most people would go, oh my God, what is this, like, some kind of huge DAW or something. But once you know what is really going into this product and how many people are working for this thing every single day, this is exactly why I tell people that Roon is a value. And, if you're like me, rip the Band-Aid off. I look at it like a component. Roon also makes a core that runs the whole system. You can use your own computer to do this, but they've got this thing called the nucleus in a couple of different levels, depending on how much processing power you need. Take a look at their website. Go to Roon, roonlabs.com, and you'll be able to see a lot of the stuff, including being pointed to updates. And
I know some people have had like a little bit of sticker shock on this stuff, but the way that I always kind of think about it is if you have any kind of serious audio system in your home, this is going to be the component in your system that you're interacting with like on a daily basis. Every day you're going to
that's certainly one way to look at it. But the other way to look at it is you've got like, fairly inexpensive powered speakers around your house. but you're a super music lover, let me tell you, it's still worth it. Even if you're not getting huge resolution from these things, if you're in that category, if you are in the category of a true music lover, let me define that. You go into the grocery store, they play or one of your songs comes on. It doesn't matter what it is, but it's something that you really love. You still get goosebumps. You are a music lover. And for someone like you, Roon would be fantastic. I don't much care what you're listening through. I love high-end audio, and I've got it all over my house. But I can go to my very lowest end system, and my song comes on, whatever that happens to be, and the little hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I love music more than I love audio, because if you took all my audio away and just left me one little speaker to listen to, I can still get cold chills. So if you're that kind of person, don't think that you have to have this super high-end system to enjoy Roon or millions of different zones. What you have to be to really, really enjoy Roon is to be an extreme music lover. And so the two people that I recommend it to are people that are like that, extreme music lovers, and then the people that want to see a common user interface that have got lots and lots and lots of zones, because that's impossible to get as well unless you own one brand. So
we barely talked about audio at all. I mean, the some of the DSP capabilities.
Oh my gosh, I would love to do that, because I am a huge
with a pair of headphones. I mean, there's that's actually, to me, to be able to go from like the little clock radio speaker that I have in my bathroom that I put something on in the shower and then I send it over to the living room on the Unity Atom, right? It's to be able to take the high res music around the house or whatever setup I'm on. That's great in the audio world, but like you, David, to me, it's much more about the music and the browsing and kind of knowing that when I hit play, it's going to be at the best possible quality. And I'm going to find something great to listen to 5 minutes later as well, right? So
this is what cemented our friendship anyway. It was music. Music definitely. I mean, Mike and I, we got together. We knew each other a little bit, but it wasn't until we started playing music together that we started becoming really good friends. And I want and I told the guys at Roon this to begin with, and I think I may have stepped on some toes, but I'm going, listen, I want a Roon playlist. I want 2 or 3 of them on Qobuz, but guys, what I really want, you weren't in the conversation at this point, is I want a Mike Fass playlist. It's like, well, we got a lot of music lovers. So I'm going, I know everybody's a music lover, but I want the Mike Fass list. And maybe I just call it the Mike Fass list and we don't get the Roon. So Mike, you're going to have to make and share a playlist with me of stuff that that we've got in common. But here's the other thing. Would you mind coming back? Because you're right. It is like literally next to impossible to even scratch the surface of Roon. And if somebody can give me a 5-minute elevator pitch, I would go, are you kidding me? I think that's impossible to do. There is no elevator pitch for Roon. You got to kind of go into it. So thank you so much for being with us and sharing so much. And
I can't believe we went through 2 hours here, David. It was a ton of fun, and I would love to come back sometime. So thank you for having me. And
I'll tell you, if we could, I would just keep going. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Mike, you hang out here for just a second. I'm going to close us out. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. This has been a super, super fun live stream for me, because as you can probably tell, I'm very much into Roon. We've got some other really, really good ones coming up in the next few weeks. I believe next week, Dan and I are going to be doing, Dan Matka, he's our managing director, and just in case you didn't know, Dan and I are going to be doing a Ask Me Anything about Qobuz. I believe that's going to be next week. So be sure to join us if you've got any questions, because it's going to be all about bringing you on screen and answering the questions that you've got right then. As always, we'll answer them afterwards. The week after that, we're going to have Bill Schneeback on, who is one of the most preeminent recording engineers of all time. I think he's up to somewhere around 50 or 60 Grammy nominations. just a ton of albums that you already know, the Steely Dan stuff, the Thelma Houston stuff, and there's just hundreds of artists after that. So we're gonna have Bill back on. We're gonna be talking about his new book, Chairman at the Board, which is going to be super, super interesting because he's going to be talking about what it takes to get great recordings straight from the source, and then recommendations of how you get as close to those recommendations as you can possibly get for your own enjoyment. So that's what we're going to be doing over the next couple of weeks. Join us every week at 4 p.m. on Thursday, 4 p.m. Eastern time. Thank you so much for joining us. And with that, Neetha, I think you can go ahead and bring up the closing, whatever you're going to do. And I'll say goodbye to everyone. And thanks again for joining us, everybody.